Hello and welcome back to the channel. So in this video I'm going to be walking you through a step-by-step process on how you can integrate AI into your project. And while I'm not talking about how to generate code snippets using artificial intelligence, we are going to be building a real-world application using Vertex AI and Django. So just to give you a sneak peek of what we're going to build today, here in my front end I do have M-Pesa credit score system where you can upload a mini statement, then it gives you the credit score of that person based on the transaction in the mini statement. So I'm going to upload a statement here, and then if I say upload and process, you can see that this person has a credit score of 10 and it gives you a summary that it needs improvement. As well as that, you can see a decision of rejected because of the poor credit score, and then you also get an AI summary here based on the M-Pesa mini statement that you uploaded. So it gives you that statement. You also get an account summary as well as the recent transactions. So that is the first credit score. Let's upload another statement. So I'm going to upload a different statement, but a healthy mini statement. You can see that this person has a strong credit profile. You also see the gauge here has moved all the way to 80 from red zone to the green zone. Then the decision is to give a high loan limit. Then let's look at the financial overview. The AI has provided us the M-Pesa statement reflects a financially stable profile. So based on the transaction, the AI has been able to determine that this person has a strong financial profile with 21 transactions, a healthy income of 5,000 against expenses of 2,100. So ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be our project for today using Django and then Vertex AI. So we're going to cover everything from authentication, setting up the project, and also some best practices for this project. So if you love AI, you also are a fan of Django and you want to build something using these two technologies, then this video is for you. So let's get started. So just to walk you through this platform, one of the things that you can see at the very top is that I have my project here, Vertex Django. You can go ahead and create your project too. If you do want to create your new project, just click on this icon. And then you can add a new project. Notice that I have two projects. One is Vertex Django, the one that you are currently using. We also do have a Vertex Core, but if you do want to add a new project, all you need to do is to click on new project. Okay, then you need to give your project a name. You can give it any name, something that is meaningful, and then you also need to set up a billing account. That is why we were talking about the billing account setup. You need to have it. The organization, if you do have an organization, but it's optional, you don't have to add it. The most important is the project name should be something meaningful, as well as the billing account. Once you do that, you are good to go. So that is it as much as you are concerned with creating a project. Once you have created your project, the next thing that you need to do is to enable billing. I have already enabled my billing, so the billing is enabled. You need to do that for your project. So in this case, it's enabled. It will ask you to enable billing whenever you create a project for the first time. So once you have enabled your billing, the next thing to do is to enable the services that you're going to use. So since you're going to work with Django and Vertex AI, we need to enable Vertex AI in order to make those API calls. So to walk you through some of the APIs that you need to enable, I'll go to my API and services here. Okay, then you'll be prompted here to select your project. I do have two projects, so always select the project that you're using. So I'm going to select Vertex Django, and then you can see an option here to enable API and services. So if you want to enable the API and services for your project, all you need to do is to just come here to enable API and services. And this is really important for your project to work. The APIs need to be enabled. You don't have to enable all the APIs. You only need to enable the APIs that you're going to use. For example, in my case, I do have a lot of APIs here: BigQuery Data Policy API, the Cloud Data Store API. So most of these, I don't need them. All we need for this project to work is the Vertex API, Vertex AI API, the Notebook API. We really don't need this one. And you also need to set this one, enable this one, that is the Gemini for Google Cloud API. And also, yeah, that's it. We don't need a bunch of this one. Only enable the APIs that you need to use. You don't need to enable all of them. So if you want to enable your API, once again, all you need to do is to just click on enable API and services. Okay, then you can see a bunch of APIs here. And then the good thing, if you know the API that you want, you can just go ahead and search it. For example, I want Vertex AI. So that's not the right spelling. Vertex AI API. So you just search it like that. Alright, then it will show you the Vertex AI API. We also have Vertex AI search for commerce API. Alright, so let's click on Vertex AI API to enable it. I've already enabled it, but I'm just going to show you. You will be able to see that it's already enabled, right? You'll get that green checkbox. So which means that Vertex AI API is already enabled. So that is the two main important things. You need to create a project, you need to enable billing, and you also need to enable the API that you are going to use. So I'm just going to go back to my Vertex AI dashboard just to explore it further. So Vertex AI also has like a model garden, which has a bunch of models, including its own pre-built models, the Gemini model, as well as other custom models. So the model garden just allows you to access a pool of models that you can access without actually building your own model. Another thing is the Vertex AI Studio. So think of Vertex AI Studio as just a lab where you can test your application before actually building it. And then the last thing that I want to cover here is authentication. That's the last bit that we're covering under Vertex AI. Then we'll just go straight into our Django API. So let's go ahead and see how we can handle authentication. So we have two main ways of handling authentication for our API calls. So we all know that when you're working with APIs, you need to set up some form of authentication so that the two apps can be able to know each other and make a handshake before making those requests. So we have three main ways of doing the authentication. The first one is that you can use service accounts. You can also use API keys to be able to make the authentication work. So I'm going to cover the first one, that is going to be the service accounts. That's the most recommended feature that I do recommend for making your authentication. You can also use API keys, but just remember to rotate them. So to be able to set up service accounts, you just head over to the search bar here. If you're not sure where it is, you can go search service accounts. So we have service accounts at the top. All right, and you'll be able to see a list of projects. So right now we have the first project that is now the default project, so don't delete it. It's what powers your application to actually work. So just leave it as it is. So what we want to focus on is the Vertex Django. This is the project that you're currently working on. To be able to manage it and add some form of authentication, I already said this one earlier, but I just want to walk you through a step-by-step process on how you can set authentication. So you need to click on that, and then you'll be able to see the name of your project. Then here, let's go to permissions. So under permissions, you can manage access. All right, so you can see that I do have some roles over here. The first one is the Vertex AI Service Agent, as well as the Vertex AI User. So the principle that you need to stick with is that give the least privilege. So you can set something like owner, but this is risky. If somebody gets access to your API keys, this can be risky, and your system can be compromised because the owner has full access. You can see this label here, that full access to most Google Cloud resources. So for my case, I always choose the least privilege, which in this case, I'm just going to go with the Vertex AI Service Agent. And then for the role, I'm just going to give it Vertex AI user. There's a bunch of other roles here, like for example, editor, which just view, create, update, and delete most Google resources. I don't want that for my project when I'm going public. I'm just going to set it to Vertex AI, which just grant access to use all resources, but not delete, manage, and maybe create. So that is something that you need to think about when you want to set up some roles. And then remember to save once you are done. Vertex AI setup. So the last thing that you're going to do is how you can actually download the JSON file, because with the service accounts, it allows you to download a JSON file and then just store it somewhere in your local machine, and then in your env file you are going to point to the location of that JSON file. So you can come here and then create a new key. You can set the JSON, that's the recommended one because it's easy to work with in the web. So I'm going to choose JSON and then create. All right, you can see that our JSON file has been created. It has been saved to our local machine, and then all we need to do for it to work is that we need to point to where that file is in our env. And remember not to commit the env to GitHub, because that will just expose your system. So that is it for the Vertex AI dashboard, how to handle authentication, how to enable billing, and also how to enable the services that you're going to do. So that's all that we needed for Vertex AI. Now we are going to jump straight into Django and see our project structure as well as the configurations. So now let's jump back to our Django application and actually see some of the project structure and the configurations that we do have for our application. What I have here is a project that is called Vertex Core and one app that is called Analyzer. So this is what is going to be handling all the analysis of the main statement, as well as the credit score algorithm and the PDF parser. So what do we need for this project? All we need for this project is Django itself. Remember to install Django. And then we also need one important package, and that is called the PDFPlumber. So PDFPlumber is what is going to help us in extracting of our PDF data that takes from the main statement and then passes into JSON, then pass all the data to Vertex AI after running our inbuilt local algorithm. So that is the reason we are using PDFPlumber. So we can't completely trust AI when it comes to finance, because it can make mistakes. So that's why in this approach we are using the hybrid method, where we are doing some bit locally using our local algorithm that will determine the score based on some metrics that we are going to discuss in a few, and then just let Vertex AI do its thing. So that is one of the approaches that I recommend. So going forward, let's first explore the env. So the env here just points to where my service key is stored. Make sure you store it somewhere secure that is not easy to access for the users for your PC. The Vertex ID project, you can get it under the Vertex AI dashboard, and then the location, just set it to dashboard. Okay, so one thing that you can see that we are using Gemini 2.5 Flash. Flash is good for speed, and also the cost is not that high. So the Gemini 1.5 models were retired, so they're not going to be available. So always set it to 2.5 plus. So if you set it to 1.5, you're going to run into some issues. So that is one of the things that you need to look into when you're integrating Django and Vertex AI. So just to exit out of that, the next thing that we have here is our main project settings.py. We have all these configurations just to load our env. Allowed host is just set to everything. We are registering our application. Our middleware is just the default one. We don't have any custom middleware. The database, we are using SQLite for this one, but you can change and use DBs such as the Neon DB if you want to. Yes, so we need to set it to global when you're using Gemini 2.5. Okay, the local locations are not available for say US 1, maybe Africa. It needs to be global when you're using Gemini 2.5. And this is something that really took me a lot of time to debug and find out that Gemini 2.5 doesn't support local, it needs to be global. So that's it for our settings.py file. We also have urls.py, which is pretty simple. Then lastly, we have the presentation layer where we are using templates. We could do something like a React frontend, but just to keep it simple, I'm going to stick with templates for our presentation layer. And that is it for our project and the template. Now, the core part is the analyzer application. This is the application that will do everything. For the prompts here, we don't need it. Just going to delete that. So we have some components here that we have. The first one is that I do have a models here. This is what is going to store our mini statement that is being extracted. So a mini statement has like a customer name, a mobile number, a period that it was started, the period that is end, the PDF file itself, the raw text, that's just going to be the raw text from the PDF, and then we also have the transaction JSON. Transaction JSON is going to be the text, but now this time we're converting it into JSON, as well as the AI summary. This is going to be displayed in our detail page, the credit score, the decision, and the creation, such a simple model here. And then now let's switch back to our services. This is the engine of this project. This is what is going to power everything. So we do have three main services. We do have a service layer here. Remember, services in Django, you can use services to keep your views leaner and simple. So instead of jamming everything inside your views.py, you can actually structure your project to have a services layer which will handle services just as credit score, PDF parsing, Vertex AI service. So PDF, the services layer, is really important. As you will see in a few, it keeps your views lean. So the first important service here is the M-Pesa parser service. So really important. This is where the PDFPlumber is going to work. So we have just an M-Pesa service where we extract the data. The first thing that we do is to extract that data using PDFPlumber. We're just setting two variables here, the lines, and we also have a list that is going to be lines, because remember, an M-Pesa mini statement do have lines in it. If you know that, something like a bank statement, it has lines of transactions. So we're keeping the text and we're also keeping track of the lines that we have. Then we're just using this context over here to be able to loop through that PDF file that we've uploaded, and then we'll just save our text as well as the lines here. Transactions are going to be saved in the variable for transaction here, and then we need to sort the transaction by the date. So we want to sort them by the most recent transaction, just for better presentation. Just like that. We're just going to look if there's some transaction. I just print. Maybe this is for just for debugging purposes, but we don't really need it. It's just to test if there's some transaction coming through. Okay, you can just let one print to. Okay, so if there's a transaction, if the transaction is greater than 1, then you can just print the first transaction.get the date time. So we want to see the date of the transaction. Then we just return the raw text as well as the transaction. So that is good. The first step was the extraction bit, and now we have the next one where we're going to pass the transactions. Okay, we are having a regex here to just kind of check on the patterns of the mini statements. So it should have like a receipt number, the date time, and also the details, the status, and also the amount and balance. That is the columns that our mini statement do have. The rest are just for skipping. If there's an empty line, we don't want to record an empty line inside our text. Inside our line, we want to skip lines. So if not line, we're just going to use the continue. Right, so we just determine if it is paid out or paid in. So if it is paid out, it's positive. It's going to be greater than 0. Then that is going to be paid in. If it's paid out, it's going to be 0. Okay, then we just keep the transaction that is going to have the receipt, the date time, the details, as well as the status of the transaction, whether it's completed, the paid in, the balance as the balance. The balance is going to be the last balance of the user. So after the transaction, what is the user left with? So that is something that we're going to use to be able to determine the amount of credit or amount of loan that you can be able to give this specific user. So that is it for the M-Pesa M-Pesa. Another important service is the credit score service. This is where the local algorithm is going to be, just to be able to determine the amount of loan that we can be able to give this user based on the transaction. So we have loan bands here. So for example, we're going to be checking on gambling keyword, for example, bet, SportPesa, Betika, just to see if this user has some betting patterns. Remember, you don't want to give somebody a higher loan limit if they are prone to betting and you see some things such as Mozart or debates Aviator in the mini statement. So that's going to be a red flag. Number one is the gambling keywords in the mini statement. So we are going to check on the count of the gambling keywords. If the count of the gambling keywords here are high, then definitely this user over here is going to be a red flag. So another thing is the loan keywords. So we're going to count the number of loan keywords that we have. So for example, Tala, Branch, Zenka, Okash, Cider, Fuliza, M-Credit, all those stuff, we are going to look at those loan keywords. If the loan keywords are greater than a given number, let's say if they're greater than 10 or 5, then that's going to be a red flag. Then we're going to penalize this user based on the gambling keywords as well as based on the loan keywords. We have a minimum score of 10 and a credit score, a maximum credit score of 100. The first one is just a helper function, then we're also passing debt time. So here's what we use to calculate the score. We have different components over here that you're going to check. The first one is going to be the income component, right? So the income component is what is going to determine how the user spends the income versus the expenses. So the income component is just going to be the credit score service. Then we're going to use the score income ratio, that is going to be total in, total out. So that is going to work out the total in versus the total out to be able to determine the income component, because we just don't want to give a higher loan limit to users who are overspending versus the income that they're getting. So that's the first component that we're going to check. So the raw score here is going to be income raw score plus or is equal to income component. So we just add our income component to our raw score here. So that's the first component. The next component that you're going to use, because these are what are going to determine the credit score, is the Fuliza overdraft penalty. Okay, so it's going to be a penalty for somebody who has a higher Fuliza count. So if the word Fuliza appears frequently in your statement, then you're going to definitely give your penalty based on your score. So the raw score, remember, was 50. So for every Fuliza count, we are going to penalize you based on the Fuliza count. So that is why we have Fuliza score is equal to Fuliza component. Then the breakdown is going to be Fuliza component. We just add that breakdown there. Okay, then we also have the gambling penalty, same thing as the Fuliza overdraft. The salary, we want to see how much income is coming into your account, as well as the balance component, how much balance are you left with. So you don't want somebody who has a zero or a negative balance, so we're going to penalize you for that. For your loan limit is going to be lower. And also the lenders component, that is the likes of Fuliza, Branch, etc. Okay, so we are going to clamp this one to be able to fit the range, because we want to have a range of 10 to 100. We don't want it to be 50 to 300. The range has to be 10 to 100. That's why we are clamping this latest score here. Then we are making a decision using credit service.make decision and amount. So with that, we're just passing in the clamped amount, and then we return the score. That's the raw score, the clamped score, the score that has been clamped from 10 to 100, and then the loan amount that has been approved, the breakdown, the total in, the total out, and the final balance. So that is it for our AI credit score. Down here is just the methods that we do have in our class. For example, score income ratio. For example, we are going to reward if the income is significantly larger than the outgoing. So that is something that you need to look at when you are awarding somebody a credit limit. If the income outweighs the expenses, then definitely that person is going to be having a higher score. So That is the first one. The second method that we do have is the freezer count. We are basically just checking through the gambling keywords, counting them. If they're higher, we're just gonna penalize you. And then same to gambling keywords, freezer, the salary pattern, as well as the final loan balance. So if the score balance is greater than if balance is greater than 20,000, for this case we're just returning 30, we're giving it a score of 30. So if the balance is greater than 5,000, 15, 1,005, if it's less than 0, that's a negative 30 for your score. So the algorithm here is really going to punish those who have negative 0 balance. Then the score diversity, if the user interacts with unique recipients, for example, if the user just has one recipient, that can be a red flag. The user might be trying to just send money to his other number, so that's going to be a red flag. We want to have a score diversity. And then we also have the store merchants. If the user frequently make payments to merchants, that signals legitimate spending. So we're also checking on that. If he make things on details such as Lipa na M-Pesa or pay bill, that signals legitimate spending. So those are some of the things that we're looking into. Then we also have the loan apps. If the user has those Tala branch and stuff like that, that is going to be a negative score if the count for those loan apps is higher. Then we're just finally making a decision. If the score is greater than 80, then that's high loan. You can give the person a 20,000 to 50,000 loan limit. If the score is greater than, less than, or is equal to 60, and score is less than or is equal to 79, that is medium score. And then lastly, we have a small loan for somebody who has 50 to 59. So rejected are those people who are having less than that. So that is it for our algorithm. And then lastly, we have the AI service. This is the heartbeat of the project. This is what is going to call the Vertex AI API. Remember, we need to set up the Vertex client. I need to import this from Google. Import Gen AI. This is the latest one. Don't import generative AI. It's Gen AI. That's the latest one. Then you need to use Gemini 2.5, and then you need to set global because 1.5 models were retired. And then global is the location. Don't set US central. That won't work with Gemini 2.5. Here we just initialize our Vertex client. That is going to be GenAI.client, Vertex AI to true. Then project settings, it needs to know our project. Remember, we did import it in a settings.py file. So we're just setting Vertex project ID. Then the location is set to global. That's it for the initialization. Then right here, we just have the method to generate our summary. So generate summary, we only generate summary if there are some transactions. So if there's no transactions in that PDF statement, we won't generate any statement. So we won't even go to the Vertex AI. So if no transaction, we just say no transaction found in the statement. And then if there's some transaction, we first need to build the context. All right. Remember in our credit score, we have a build context. It's just a method within this Vertex AI service. So it's somewhere at the bottom. Scroll down in a bit. So we build our context. That is going to be transactions and the credit score data. So that is what you're going to use to build our context. So the Vertex AI needs enough context. That is going to determine the quality of the output of the summary that you're going to get. So we're here passing in the transactions and also the score data to be able to tell if this person qualifies or is rejected or get this certain loan amount. So the context, give it as much as you can. Then this is where we set our temperature. Temperature just sets how wild your AI is going to behave. But if you want factual data, always set the same data from 0 to 0.3. That is good for math. Anything that is 0.8 to 1, that is good for creativity. But since we are doing with math and financial here, we are just going to set it to 0.3. That is good for factual. And also remember, notice we are setting our model as well as the context here. Then we are also setting up the config, which has the temperature, as well as the max output token. So the max output token just determines how your summary is going to be. So if you have a summary that is going to be long, always adjust the max output tokens. If you make it small and then your prompt is something that's big, that might run into an issue. So make sure that you just give it based on the summary that you're expecting. It's going to be either high or low. So that is the max output token config. So those are the two main configs that we need to make that request. And then this is where we do have our build context. So this is how we build our context for the prompt that we are going to pass. So we have the total in score data.get total in. Then we also have total out, the balance, the score, and the decision. So all of these are going to be passed to our prompt that we are going to generate in a few. And then here down we have our breakdown components. Okay, we just loop through our full user count, our expense ratio, and then we pass everything. So this is going to be our prompt. You need to give it a prompt. So analyze this M-Pesa statement and write a detailed 1-paragraph credit assessment. So you can make it 2-paragraph, 3-paragraph, but for this case I'm just telling it to analyze the M-Pesa statement and write a detailed paragraph credit assessment. So you can see here we have the data, we have the recent transaction, and also we have a prompt here to say write a 1 detailed paragraph. All right, so make sure that you give your prompt a lot of context as possible so that you get the output that you intend to get. That's why you're passing all of this transaction, the expense ratio, the full user component. Those are those components that we just looked at. Then the recent summary, right? Our prompt over here is good. Then this is just for counting the loan apps. Once you're done with that, then I think we are good to go. That is it for the 3 main components. All you need to do is to come back to our view. And then you can see that our views is pretty lean. It's not that big. So you could imagine if we had all those services inside our view, it could have been chaos here. So we do have our view that is just going to be the first view for upload the statement. So it has a form. We're just taking up the services, all the 3 services that we do have. We are saving the form. We're passing the PDF. We're calculating the credit score. Yeah, then we just call the Vertex AI service that we had. So if there's an no transaction, we're just going to say no transaction found. And then lastly, we also have the detailed page for displaying the summary. So that is it for our project, and we can go ahead and test it once again. And then you can see that this person here needs improvement. The credit score is very low, and we have all this summary based on the context that we passed. We also have the total outflows as well as the recent transactions. So that is it for the credit score. We can go ahead and test again for the other statement. All right, we can see that this person has a strong profile and an 80 credit score. So that is the power of AI. You get the summary, and just remember that we did this with the help of our local algorithm and the Vertex AI. So that's it, guys. That is how you can integrate artificial intelligence, and in this case it was Vertex AI, and let Django consumes its Gemini model. So we've seen some of the best practices. Practice number 1 is that we've seen how we should authenticate our app. We have 2 options, or you can use the service account, which gives you fine-grained control. You can set the roles and the resources that you want to access. Then we also have another way for authentication, that is use of the API keys. You just need to go to aistudio.google.com. Then you can just generate your API key here and use it for your project. For fine-grained control and that for security, always ensure that you set up your service accounts, give it the right resources and roles. So that is it for the security control. Then for the cost control, you need to set up alerts, and you also need to set up budget limit. For instance, you can set up $50, $10, $100, depending on the nature of your project, so that when it hits a certain limit, it stops. So that is really going to be helpful. Another important thing is to set alerts for your Google Cloud project. You need to set up alerts for, let's say, if you have like a $100 monthly limit, so when it hits 50, it's going to notify you that, hey, you are at 50% of your spend, or you're at 80%, or you're at 20%. So those limits, those alerts are really important so that you know the request that you have. You can also set rate limiting for your application per user or per IP. So that is another thing that you can really do to be able to manage the cost control. Another thing that you can do to be able to save you some cost is that let your application do as much as it can. So let's say for the PDF extraction, I could have just as well just uploaded the PDF to Vertex AI and let it do everything, but that was going to consume a lot of tokens. So remember, extracting a 50-page M-Pesa statement text by the Gemini Vision model, that was going to consume a lot of tokens. So instead, we can just extract everything and then just pass Vertex AI the processed data. So that can save you a significant amount of money when it comes to the API cost. That is what I wanted to share with you regarding the cost control as well as the security control for your application. For performance, you can add something such as Celery to be able to handle background tasks. As you noticed, uploading over 40-page PDF statement can take quite a while. So for good performance and also good user experience, you can handle those bulk tasks, the background, using Redis and Celery. That is something that is really good. This is just for a demo. To keep it simple, we just use the traditional approach. For the presentation, go with React or just any other front-end framework that you can use to be able to come up with a nice UI for the users. So, well guys, that's it for our today's tutorial on Django and Vertex AI. If you're new to the channel, kindly consider subscribing. If you do that, not only do you help the channel, but you also help other developers and like-minded people to see this channel. You also get notified each and every time I upload a new video. So that is going to do it for today, and see you in the next one.